Day 1 and 2 of a long fast are nothing like people imagine. Most people think the hardest part comes later, like day 7 or 10, maybe even week 3. But in my experience, the real crisis happens in the first 48 hours, because that's when you take food away and your entire body and mind panic. So whenever I start an extended fast, or let's say a 21-day fast, I know exactly what's coming. The first 2 days are not about discipline. They are not about willpower, and they are not about getting through the shock. You've just removed something your body depends on every single day. That's breakfast, coffee, rituals, lunch breaks, dinner routines, and suddenly none of that exists anymore. Your body doesn't understand what's happening. And it reacts with a vengeance. So for me, the first thing that hits me is the headache. It's that dull pressure behind the eyes, just around here, not unbearable, but just constant. And then comes the low energy. It feels like somebody turned the brightness down of your entire body. Everything slows down. Walking feels heavier, thinking feels foggy, and emotionally things get weird. I become irritable. Small things suddenly feel annoying. Someone talks too loud, a notification pops up, something minor goes wrong. Normally, I wouldn't care, but during those first 48 hours, everything feels amplified. And then there's the hunger. Not physical hunger, because I'm using the Broy's fasting method, but habit hunger. My brain keeps reminding me, isn't this the time you normally drink coffee? Or isn't this when you eat breakfast? And shouldn't we open the fridge right now? It's amazing how much of eating is just a ritual. The kitchen becomes this strange place. You walk past it and your brain expects something to happen, but nothing does. And that interruption of daily rituals is actually one of the hardest parts. At some point during those first few days, I always feel this wave of exhaustion. Not the normal kind of tired. Not the normal kind of tired. The kind where all you want to do is sleep. And I've learned something important here. The worst thing I can do in this moment is try to push through life normally, trying to work at full speed, or trying to run errands, or keep my emotion, or keep my normal schedule. That usually makes the experience miserable. So now I do the opposite. I slow everything down. I stay home and I rest. Whenever possible, I arrange things so somebody can take care of some of my usual responsibilities, because those first 2 days aren't about productivity. They are about transition. And my body is switching from burning food to burning its own stored energy. And that shift takes time, usually 2 to 3 days for me. But over time, I found that a few things that make those first 48 hours much easier. First, I stay home and I rest. I treat the beginning of the fast almost like a recovery period. Less stimulation, less stress, and more calm. Second, I go for short walks. Nothing intense, just slow walks outside. Something about moving gently helps the body settle into a new rhythm. It clears my head and it reminds me that the body is still functioning, even without food. And third, I try to get into the rhythm of the fast. That means letting go of the normal eating schedule. So instead of thinking it's lunchtime, I think it's just another hour of the fast. It sounds simple, but mentally it changes everything. And then there's something a lot of people don't talk about, but it actually helps a lot. Emptying the bowels. When you stop eating, your digestive system still has leftover material. Getting that out of the body early makes the transitions much smoother. Otherwise, the body keeps trying to digest food that isn't coming anymore. And once that's cleared, things start to feel a little lighter. And somewhere near the end of those first 48 hours, something shifts. The hunger starts fading, irritability softens, the headaches usually disappear, and suddenly the fast doesn't feel like a crisis anymore. It starts to feel calm. That's when the body begins to settle into the fast. What the first 48 hours taught me is this: the hardest part of fasting isn't the lack of food. It's the breaking of habits. The body can adapt surprisingly quickly, but the mind takes a moment to let go of all of those routines. But once it does, everything becomes much easier. Now, if you're curious about extended fasting and want to learn how to prepare for a 3-week fast safely, I created a free community called Fasting with Anne on School. So inside I share a free course on how to prepare for a long fast, and you will be surrounded by people going through the same journey. So if that sounds interesting, you can join us in there. I'll see you in the next video.